Welcome, guys. And thank you to the audience. Happy to see everyone here. So as Doug said, this is Talking Shop. And the whole idea of Talking Shop is bringing faculty, students, and people from the business community together to talk about whatever's interesting. And today we're talking about retail. Retail's shifting a lot. Let me just poll the audience. Show of hands, how many of you bought something today? Come on, don't be shy. Coffee counts. I'm surprised. But I expected everyone. Coffee counts. I wonder if transit counts. Maybe that's a stretch. Maybe that's a bit of a, we'll edit that part out. So retail is something that's ubiquitous to all of us, and it's changing really quickly. And so today we're going to talk about some of the shifts that are reshaping the space. We have three amazing guests with different perspectives. I'll ask you to introduce yourselves in just a moment. Just want to call out Paula, who is, I'm not sure where to look, I guess that camera over there, who's joining us remote. It's funny because from our time in retail, one of the things that's most important in affecting human behavior is the weather. And Paula was supposed to be with us today in person. I believe, Paula, you're in Toronto now, just in your hotel room?
I am in a WeWork, but yeah, Air Canada had other plans for me.
Awesome.
I was supposed to be there, yeah.
Well, glad you can make it. So maybe we'll start with you, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. So I'm Paula Macaggi. I flew from New York. I have a podcast called Off Pounds. So every week I bring a new episode where I interview a retail leader about different perspectives. I travel all over the world looking for what is happening in retail, and that's what I try to bring in the podcast. I like the idea of different world perspectives and how that can help shape our decisions as retailers.
Love it. Emma?
So I'm Emma. I am the creative director and a partner at One Milk, Two Sugars, a marketing agency with offices across North America. So here in Montreal, in Toronto, and New York. We get to work with some of the most recognizable brands across North America, and I love my job.
Awesome.
Amazing. Hi, I'm Mirna. I'm Vice President of Marketing and Digital at La Vie en Rose. I've been there now for 10 years. La Vie en Rose is the prime destination for lingerie, sleepwear, and swimwear across Canada. I'm happy to say that I'm an old student of Concordia, so it's very fun to be back here.
Awesome. Yeah. So glad to have you. So three different perspectives. We have really in the front lines of retail, from the agency side, the brand storyteller, and then Paula, who's traveling the world and understanding what's going on from a global perspective. So this should be really a lot of fun. So we wanted to kick things off with a little bit of an icebreaker. And so we prepared a round of 2 truths, 1 lie about retail. So most of you raised your hands. So retail is something that we all feel connected to because we do it all the time, but it's not as obvious as you may think. So I was hoping that maybe we can start with you, Mirna. What are your 2 truths, 1 lie? And we're going to get you involved, the audience, to try to figure out what the lie is.
Okay, I'll try my best to sound very confident on all 3.
Yeah.
Make this hard. So the first, you're going to see more and more, pure e-commerce players that are opening stores to be able to reach their customers and have a better experience for their customer and more profitability. My second truth is the number 1 revenue stream for a business is social media right now. And my third truth is when, speaking of social media, we're consistently seeing that working with a variety of micro-influencers is bringing really much more conversion and ultimate revenue than working with big-time influencers. So those are my 3 statements.
Okay, super interesting. Yeah. So maybe we can get a show of hands. So the first one was more pure players?
Yeah, more pure online players opening stores.
Number 2 is that social media is the biggest revenue driver?
Yeah.
And number 3 is micro-influencers are
performing
better
than big influencers.
That's tough.
Right?
Do you guys want to vote? Right, who thinks it's number 1? Okay. No.
Like no, what is number one, the truth? Or the lie?
The lie. We're looking for the lie.
It's not the lie. This is true.
This is true.
Yes.
Ooh. Okay,
Yeah.
who thinks it's the fact that social media is driving revenue? That's the lie.
That's the lie.
Wow. And that's the lie.
That's the lie.
Wow, you guys
Yeah.
are really good.
I mean,
I wonder where you're
it's-
learning all of your stuff. This is great. Yeah,
Well,
awesome.
you got it. You're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emma. How about you?
Okay, let's dive in. 3 truths. I want to say that women's health, I think, is going to be having a huge impact on the retail space this year due to its general growing awareness at every level of the retail industry. Gen Z, we're seeing a decline of them going in stores and really focused on more digital. And there is huge growth in the secondhand retail market right now. We're seeing that it's actually increasing at a faster rate than traditional retail.
Okay. Very tough. The first one was?
The first one was women's health.
Women's
is
health,
going to
that's
have
right.
a huge impact on
Okay.
retail and is already quietly having a shift.
So is that the lie? What do you guys think? Women's health growing, gonna have a huge impact? Okay, no. Next one, Gen Z are buying only online.
They're all online.
All
We're seeing a
online.
reduction in stores.
Wow. You guys are too good.
They're too good.
Okay, amazing.
I wonder why.
It's super interesting. So we'll follow up on some of the things that you both said. Let's get Paula's answers first. So let's hear what you've come up with.
Yeah, sure. So AI is already delivering ROI, consistent results, easy to measure for all retailers. Another truth is that physical retail is growing again for many brands, and most retailers still struggle to unify customer data across channels.
Okay, so AI is easy and is already driving revenue. We have a few hands up, Paula, just so that you know.
Wow.
Is that the truth, or is the truth?
That is the lie.
Yeah.
They got it.
Yeah. So, okay, well, look, it's not on the script, but maybe we can pivot into that because there's a lot of hype around AI, and tech has been around for a while. We've lived together. By the way, just for those of you who don't know, Mirna and I used to work together for several years at a previous employer. Had a great time.
Richard taught me a lot. He actually, he was my boss, and we learned a lot. So yeah, thank you for giving me that chance.
It's mutual. I
Yeah.
definitely learned a lot from it, and will continue to learn. So, what are some of the overhyped things in the industry right now?
I don't want to say that AI is overhyped because it is incredible, and the things that it'll help us do are incredible. However, AI is just an accelerator for things that we're already doing. So if you don't have a solid marketing strategy, AI is just going to accelerate that and make it very obvious that you don't have a good marketing strategy.
Right.
So it's really a tool to accelerate what you're already doing, to help you get where you want to go faster and more efficiently.
Okay.
So when we're using it, we have to keep in mind that this is a tool that we're using to work better. It's not going to solve any problems. It's not going to solve the fact that if the company doesn't have very clear values on its products and where it stands and what kind of experience it wants to offer its customers, AI is not going to fix it. So I think, yes, right now we're hearing a lot about that, like that's the buzzword.
Right.
And it does, I think, it will change the way we're working. I think we're still in the learning and exploration phase. So to Paula's point, it's not still at the point where we're seeing the return on investment. It costs a lot. It's not an easy, there's a learning curve to understand exactly how to use it, how to prompt it, how to integrate it within the different technologies that we're using. So that we're seeing a lot of within tools that we already have online, for example,
right.
For product recommendations, for chatbots, for customer interactions. I think that's where we're seeing value right now. But in terms of creating content, creating visual content to present to our customers, we have to tread very lightly to try to keep the brand authentic, keep our marketing authentic. We really need to think how we're using it and make sure we're using it in the right way.
Right, so it's more within the tools that you're already using. Now you have these accelerators. but it's not as though there's a master platform like a Cerebral, if you remember X-Men, that you're going in the morning and you're like, what do I do?
I like that. I want that. But no, it's not. It's not like that at all. And it's still a lot of learning curve. And we have to also understand, for a lot of people, there's still a lot of resistance to use AI. And it's normal. I understand. Like, it's scary. And it's like, how is this going to affect our jobs and my job and everyone? So there is still a lot of resistance. But when you look at it as a tool and that it's going to help me do what I do 10 times faster and better, that's when it becomes really interesting.
Yeah. Emma, from a storytelling perspective, are you using AI a lot? Did you see a lot of your clients leaning into it? Tell us a little bit about that.
My approach to AI is very much human first. We can use it as a paintbrush to elevate our ideas, but I think that ultimately at this moment, the human-led ideas are still outshining the AI-generated ideas, right? And I think I've seen that in the past year also through the replica of campaigns. You're seeing a lot of campaigns are lookalikes, and that's a result of, you know, AI generating the same response when marketers ask the same question, right? So I definitely think that the impact from a creative perspective, it needs to be very thoughtful. Really the mindset of a paintbrush to elevate ideas. For sure there is AI image generation, but we have to think of the values behind that when we represent a brand. Does that reflect their values to be using AI? So there's a lot of intention and thought that has to go through it if you want to apply it from a storytelling and marketing perspective.
100%.
Yeah.
And Paula, when we spoke maybe a week ago, you were telling me that like people are going back to flip phones and like we're going to go back to sticks and stones maybe. Is that true, or we were just kind of having fun?
I think the world is excessively connected, and I see that more and more people, including myself, we are looking for ways to be slow, less optimized, less automated, less digital, less agentic. And that's why the physical store has growing in demand, I think, because we're all waiting for those experiences where we can touch and sit and explore without having to be connected all the time. And that's why I think that while we are growing in this agentic and digital era, we are also growing offline in this connected era.
Right. And so how do we feel that the customer experience, more the expectation, is evolving in light of all of these new tools that retailers have?
If I can jump in, because a lot of my work focuses on what the consumer is looking for, right? We build our stories based on what the consumer is asking. You said earlier, what are the biggest shifts in retail this year? I think it's very cultural. Consumers right now, we have to recognize the world they're living in. They're living in a world where tariffs are impacting the cost of products, where inflation is impacting the cost of living. And this is a global shift right now. It's not just here in Montreal. So as a whole, I think that what brands can do to acquire some new customers is really looking at value beyond the price. How can we drive value right now? And one of those ways is through in-store shopping. So one of the lies I said earlier was that Gen Z is not interested in shopping in store. And that's a lie, because we're seeing huge numbers come back in store. They want to experience the brand. They want to, as Paula said, they need to get away from their screen. It's become an activity again. It's something that I call the thrill of the hunt. It's back. You want to go find something. You want to go find that treasure, whether it's in retail, whether it's at thrift shopping. That thrill of the hunt is back, and it's a huge opportunity for retail right now to tap into it.
And Mirna, La Vie en Rose keeps opening new stores.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. And even during the pandemic, when a lot of people were closing stores, I think you expanded into new markets.
That's correct. I have to say also, I mean, the pandemic, we were all home, right? In our PJs.
In our PJs, yeah, it was good for business.
So we're selling PJs, we're selling, underwear, undergarments, all of that. So it did help, give us a little boost. Our swimwear sales, that's another story. So that market died completely for that period. And then it started again after the holidays, after the COVID, where everybody wanted to go on holiday. But yeah, our store experience still extremely important for us. And especially in our category, I think we have the types of like clothing that people want to try on that fits perfectly. Like a bra has to fit perfectly. It's not loose, you know. Same thing for swimwear. It really has to fit. So I think the store experience will remain extremely important for us. But there's a new term I've been hearing now. It's called I want to get it right, the phygital store, where it's a combination of like the physical experience with you know, digital. So that when you're going in the store, you want to feel like there's no friction, right? We always talk about frictionless experience online. It's the same thing in store that we want to kind of mimic, where I don't want to be waiting in line to pay, for example. Like, give me solutions. So I think we want the in-store experience, but with all the advantages of shopping online, where I don't have to wait in line. I want to make this easy. I want to be able to see what fits with this, what other available things there are. So there's going to be a mix of like the digital experience within the store. And I think that's something that we're going to see more and more of. But we're already seeing it, like with self-checkout, making it more seamless, more like much easier to get what you want, get to your product faster. So that's the kind of stuff I think we're going to get into a little more, but it will remain extremely important.
Right, like showrooming and returns and stuff like this to be able to be done in store.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Emma, you spoke about the kind of unpredictable things like tariffs and so on. So what's the ratio or the balance of planning versus being able to be adaptable right now?
I think what Mirna just spoke about, actually, the impact on sales of bathing suits based on COVID, like that's cultural.
Right.
That's cultural. You couldn't have planned that, right? And so there has to be a happy medium. There was a time when I started in marketing when we would plan sometimes almost 2 years in advance, the entire marketing plan, and we followed it to a T. It's not the case at all. Now we really operate on a quarter max basis for most of our clients' plans. Yes, we'll design full year plans, but usually they shift completely. But it gives us a basis to build, okay, the budget's the direction, but the actual campaigns that are happening are being, you know, really adapted quite fast, really more of the moment. We have one client, Elf Cosmetics, Elf Beauty, and we call it moving at elf speed. They really are a great example of a brand that knows how to shift and react very quickly. I remember when we first started working with them, we had to almost change the way we operate because they were building campaigns 2 weeks out, you know? But they have sort of helped shift and transition the entire industry into this type of speed, and it's what works today because ultimately culture really runs consumer habits. It influences consumer behavior.
So super interesting that you say that. And I remember from the days where I was more involved in retail, every day, you know, you're hitting refresh to see what the sales are like. You're looking at the weather channel to see what's happening over the weekend.
Yeah, the weather is a great example.
It's huge, right? And we can't control it. You know, you get snow early on in the season and your boot sales are going to be fantastic. If it's a late winter, and then you're already on Boxing Day sales, you've just kind of lost your season. And I wonder, Paula, in your experience, is this global? I mean, Emma's talking about from a cultural perspective. It certainly seems to be the case from a North American perspective, but I'm wondering what you're seeing globally.
It is global. It just operates differently across the continents, let's say. Like, I am originally from Brazil. The way we shop is a lot more content oriented. Like we need a lot of social media to interact with in our experiences. While in Europe, I think it's already a lot more disconnected and more service driven. And while in the US, I think being fast and frictionless is still more predominant, even though we are waiting for sitting down in a coffee shop inside a store and enjoy the brand in other ways. So it's global, but it has deeper nuances in different countries.
Okay, so this is the perfect transition to maybe double down on the marketing side of things. So the marketing mix has changed too. You know, at one point it was you have your email, you have Google search, you have, I don't know, billboards, something like that. And now we got influencers, UGC, TikTok campaigns, GEO, which is the AI version of SEO and whatnot. So how is the mix changing?
Like that. It is changing a lot. And one thing I keep saying, like when we're having our team meetings, is we're unable to create content at the speed that we need to, you know, share this content on all our channels and media. So it really is very challenging. It's very exciting. There's a lot of points to connect with customers, but at the same time, it demands a very unique strategy per channel, because what works on one doesn't work on the other. So the need to like just produce content that's valuable, that's authentic, is a big challenge. And that's where, like, I go back to my point about AI. Like, it's a great tool, but we have to find the right balance between, you know, using AI while keeping our brands really authentic and the messaging very authentic.
Right.
But yeah, that's it's really the points of contacts are really widening a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
But is it safe to say that a big portion of the revenue is still coming from the kind of tried and true channels?
Yes.
Yes. And
yes,
so,
but it will shift. Like, we are getting to a place where you will be able to, you know, shop through your Alexa and be like, okay, can you reorder this for me? And it's gonna do it, right? You're gonna be able to shop like through social media. It's going to happen, and we have to be there when it does happen.
Yeah.
But today, yeah, we're still like, you know, search and ads. Like, that's where the money's coming from. That's where revenue's coming from. But we will see this shifting. I'm pretty confident that we will see that shift.
So you have to have the vision.
Of course.
So that you're investing in these things, even if they're not necessarily driving on the short term.
You have to start now.
You have to start now.
So that when it does happen, you're already in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Emma, I see you nodding. From a storytelling perspective, a lot of times the return is going to be, you know, longer term, right? So are you being challenged differently now that you know, there's these channels that are maybe a little bit more quick to measure or so on?
For sure. I think the demand is higher than ever. You know, she spoke about the speed and the sheer amount of content. Again, when I first started in marketing, there was, you know, there'll be 4 photo shoots a year and
Right.
we'll have X amount of content that comes out of it. But now brands are having to basically become newsrooms.
Yeah.
Operate with a whole team to pump out enough content that is relevant to their audiences. It's like running a newsroom, and that's why a lot of brands lean on agencies to help facilitate that and have a whole team that can come in and take over the content facilitation. To that point, we have to come up with so many more ideas than we did before. Now we have, as an agency, I like to say sometimes we're idea machines. We need to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall until one sticks, and we need to do that for all our brands. And that's sort of the importance also in an AI world, that creativity is a really important asset and skill. If you're developing your careers, it's something that I think will never go away, really, because AI can't come up with even enough ideas that are authentic to your audience, that considers all the nuances we're talking about today. So yeah, that's how it's sort of shifting my world right now. Yeah.
So I mean, that's a nice pivot into what are some of the skills that, you know, you would recommend the next generation of marketing professionals lean into?
On that note, I would say definitely hone in on your creativity. Don't let necessarily the machine do everything for you. Creativity takes practice. I say practice because it takes confidence. You need to be able to come up with multiple ideas that fail before one sticks. It requires curiosity and also learning to focus on one thing and do the deep dive and try to research. So I'd say focus, creativity, and curiosity.
Love it. Love it. And Paula, you moved from Brazil to now New York. I mean, that shows a lot of the traits that Emma's talking to. What advice would you give the next generation of marketers?
Well, I moved to 6 different countries, and now I'm in New York. So
Wow.
yeah, I got the curiosity, which I think is one thing that every leader that I interview also says. Curiosity is very important. If you're just agreeing with everything that you see, kind of like it doesn't go anywhere. You always have like, why? What do I do? What does it happen if I press this? What does it happen if I do that? You know, you have to have that very good curiosity that will drive you on the day to day. But I think like be authentic. We are all, as Eman said, like we are all sounding the same. We all like everybody sounds the same now. Every brand looks the same. Like what makes you and what you offer to the world authentic that is different than what I can offer. And I think that's the point. I think like you have for like my podcast, for example, if I was trying to sound like every other podcaster, or could AI just do that? Like, of course they do.
Right.
But people listen to me because they like my perspective. Make sure that you focus on your perspective.
That's great advice, yeah. You want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. If I understood correctly, I think you studying consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is based a lot on emotion, and that's one thing AI doesn't have. So that's where we have to be, smart about how we put our brands forward. And to go back to what you both said, which I completely agree, it's about being authentic, understanding what the brand values are, because we want to connect to a brand. We want to feel, like we're part of a tribe, part of a brand, and that's where the human's always going to be important, and we feel it, we know it. How many times, like I look at my feed sometimes, and I see like, as soon as you see an AI video, you see the comments, oh, it's AI, so it's dismissed, right? Because we don't connect with it. And I think that connection is still going to be very, very important when it comes to consumer behavior.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to definitely open the floor to questions from the audience, but maybe one more round. What's the one thing you're watching right now that you feel is a blind spot for the rest of the industry? Yeah, go for it.
I can kick it off. I guess my first truth that I mentioned earlier, which is women's health.
Nice.
So women's health is growing in awareness. We're starting to learn more about the impact of not only food on our body, but also materials. And we're seeing a shift where people are starting to question, what are these clothes made of and how does it affect specifically women, our hormonal system?
Right.
And we're seeing this question coming from Gen Z all the way up to Gen X. So it's a really big opportunity, and we're seeing brands like Uniqlo being the ones who have quietly been answering that shift with collections that are based on 100% cashmere, 100% cotton. If you go on their landing page today, you'll see that most of the messaging is about the type of materials. It's not about the style, and that's a quiet shift. Skims recently was called out for the materials being quite toxic for the female body, and they immediately answered with everyday cotton collection. And we're seeing this quiet shift across most brands. I know that La Vie en Rose also has a cotton pajama collection. So we're seeing the shift, and it's not spoken loudly about, but I am seeing that there's an opportunity for a lot of new players and a lot of sort of heritage brands to come in and win that moment. If you even look at Oura Ring, they looked at their data in the last few years, and it's a health ring. And they realized that it was mostly women that were purchasing their ring because it tracked women's health trackers, like your period or knowing how your hormone cycle, where you're at in your hormone cycle, helping for fertility. And now they're going to be launching a whole new product category just for that audience because it was such a huge growth driver. I think the wellness industry in general has been influencing the retail market, right? Longevity, that's been a big buzzword, but I think the quiet one has been women's health, and there's a big shift coming.
I love it. Awesome.
Maybe we'll pass
Yeah,
it to Paula.
what do you think people are missing right now?
I'm happy you mentioned longevity because I think that's where all the money, the attention, and the focus are going now. And I think there's this intercorrelation between retail, hospitality, and wellness that is happening now, and like more clubs and memberships and things to make you healthier. I'm seeing like gyms becoming retailers and becoming hotels and becoming, like wellness centers. So like there's this mix of experiences happening around longevity and health, and I think every brand should be. Even Philip Morris is focusing on that now. But yeah, I think this mix of hospitality and wellness, I think it's where people should be focusing a lot.
Awesome.
And you know what? I think it ladders up to what we were talking about earlier, that consumers are looking to disconnect. They're looking for healthier hobbies, healthier experiences. And I think that really ladders into this general shift. If you look at it from afar, it's all connected.
Right, right. Okay, great. Want to take a stab, or should we open up the floor to some questions? Let's do it. All right, guys. So don't be shy. Extra engagement points for the one who breaks the ice. Yeah, let's go. Emma in the front.
All right.
I think
hold on
we're
one
gonna
second.
circulate a mic, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a mic. We see there are some people joining us on Zoom. If you have comments, questions, pop those into the chat. We'll read them out. And yeah, I see some hands up. So here.
So I'm curious about the point we were just speaking about. Since access is so easy nowadays, we're all accessible and we can all hop on trends so easily. I'm curious how brands stay authentic and how they're able to navigate standing out in a world where everybody tries to follow the same kind of trends and hop on the bandwagon. I'm curious how brands continue to stay authentic while still following trends.
I think it's really important for the brand to know itself, like what are its values. I think sometimes we lose track of that when we see some trends or what others are doing, and you want to hop on that trend, but we always have to ask ourselves, is that like true to our positioning and who we want to speak to and our customer? So it's not always easy, because it's easy to want to jump in on all these different trends that come up, but it's very important to ask that question. Is it really for our customers? Is it going to speak to our customer? And a lot of things that look really flashy and fun, people don't necessarily adopt very easily. Like if it's not going to make their lives better, make their experience easier, it's not important to them. So it's always thinking twice and going back to the goal and the DNA of the brand. Yeah.
If I can add also, I think a really simple tool sometimes in our toolbox to assess whether a trend or an idea is the right one for your brand is to ask yourself, could I just insert brand here? Could this apply to any brand?
Right.
Or does this really feel like this brand? I think it's a simple way to sort of go through your ideas, go through the trends, and quickly eliminate the ones that, you know what, anybody can do that.
There's a question right here.
Who are your biggest influences for what you do today?
You look familiar, by the way.
It's a good question. I think the most important influencer should be our customer, and how she's behaving, what her needs are. Again, we can get inspired by other brands and what they're doing. Some brands really do it very well. Like it's very clear to them who they are and they stick to it, even in their language, the words that are used. Sometimes you can tell who the brand is without even seeing the logo, or just by an image or just by color. So that's every brand's dream. That's what we aspire to. That's where we want to get to. But ultimately, our influence should come directly from our customer and listening to our customer and understanding, analyzing. And that's where AI is interesting, of taking all this kind of information and from our customers' behavior and giving us cues on, when does the customer react? What does she like? What does she respond to? I think that's where it's really, really interesting to learn from. So.
I mean, that said, if you don't mind my sharing.
Please do.
Yeah, when Mirna and I worked together, she had a giant painting of Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, who wrote the Meditations, hanging over her office. So maybe a little bit of the philosopher classics as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, for me, yes. I do get inspired a lot by. I like philosophy a lot and I read about it, but yeah. Hard to do the link with but with retail, but yes. Thanks for bringing that up, Richard.
Sorry about
Yes,
that. I had it like it's in red, you know. Emma, do you want to add to that? Who is someone who influenced you a lot in your career path?
I'd say all the women in my family. Honestly, my mom is a translator. She's always worked for herself. So words have always been very important in our family. When I was younger, she would correct every sentence, and it drove me crazy. But now I find that it's like I have an editor in my head at all times when I'm writing, and that's helped me from a storytelling perspective. But I say also the women in my family, because there are so many entrepreneurs in my family, and I think it takes a lot of courage and confidence to be able to dive into and explore your idea and your passion, and that's something that I try to bring to my work every day.
Love it. Great. Paula, do you want to share an influence?
Sure. I don't, well, you won't know, but like I had two bosses in my life. And I think like that's very important for you to realize who are these leadership in your career that's going to drive you, that's going to push you a little bit too hard. They're going to see something in you that you won't see, and he or she is going to push you. And I think I had two bosses that when I was like, no, I can't be in front of the camera. They're like, of course you can. Like, no, I have this accent. Like, who cares about your accent, Paula? Just go. And I think like you need to have, and I had two that, well, thanks to them, I got the courage and I realized that just go and do it, you know?
Awesome. Yeah, they were right. So good for them. Maybe some more. I see a couple of hands in the back.
So hey, thank you guys all. I really appreciate Emma, Mirna, and Paula, and of course Richard. I had a question in terms of like the research. So obviously right now, like AI is kind of flooding the internet, social media, with like the so-called like slop, if you will. And I was just curious if you guys have like a framework for kind of mitigating what's useful information when you're researching and analyzing, and what's more like the noise.
We do a lot of research to understand our customer. We always go back to the customer because that's who we're serving. That's why we exist. And so a lot of it goes back to customer behavior, purchasing behaviors, understanding what triggers that first purchase, for example. So that's a very important one. What made you become a La Vie en Rose customer? Was it our bras? Was it our swimwear? And why? And what triggered it? Was it an ad? Was it something on social media? So understanding all of that is really where we find value, because then we can amplify that and use that to get new customers. In terms of noise, I mean, again, a lot of the trends we see that we want to, just because it works for one brand doesn't mean it'll work for you. So I would stay away from like wanting to jump on things very fast necessarily. It's good to be fast when you need to be, but it doesn't matter that every new, shiny thing is going to be good for the customer. We've experienced this a long time ago. There were these new tools that like allow, for example, women, you step into it's like at the airport, you step in and it measures the body, like it scans the body and measures your size. And when we saw that, we're like, that's revolutionary. That's going to change the way we sell bras. But nobody wanted to do it, because who wants to step into a thing and get scanned? And so in real life, and what actual customers will behave like, it can be very, very different from what we think. So a lot of times as marketers, we get excited when we see new technologies or new things, and that's cool, but we're doing it for us. We're not doing it for the customer. So that's where we always have to go back to what the customer wants. I would say that that's the way I look at it.
Great advice.
Yeah, if I can add, most of our most successful ideas usually come from an insight we've uncovered from a consumer behavior. I think that's usually the most impactful. The trend ones might work instantly and drive a surprising amount of sales, but it's usually doesn't have that longevity or the depth to the story that you can have from a consumer or emotional insight that you can get from them. And one way that we will uncover them is by doing surveys. We've created closed groups and closed networks to reach out to consumers and ask the questions that we find reports often don't ask. If you look at a lot of these reports in marketing, they're usually based on reports that have been done a year out, and so it's not real time, and so relying on real-time surveys and asking the real questions that you wish these reports have asked are sometimes the most effective ways to hear what consumers care about right now.
Great. We have time for another question, Doug? Yeah?
I think so.
Good.
Yeah, there was one over here. Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the very nice panel. A question that I have now is related to a few things that I've been seeing online in terms of, so how there is digital literacy and then there's media literacy. There's now in terms of from what I'm seeing, like literacy in terms of marketing. For example, has anyone watched the documentary Buy Now on Netflix? It's a really popular documentary that came out a few years ago, basically talking about how the psychology behind tricking, almost like pretty much tricking customers into buying more. Like for example, on the website, where do you put the Buy Now button? What color, what font do you put it? And it was fascinating to me seeing how people reacted to this of like, oh my gosh, like this marketing campaign that I really liked actually just basically used me like a guinea pig. And I feel like now more and more people, like you said, they're searching for value. So how do you make sure that your marketing campaign is selling your customers an authentic, organic experience instead of like an artificial, you know, like just buy this, we don't really care about your experience, we just want your money. And especially nowadays, everything is like scarce. So it's kind of like navigating that very thin line. I'm curious to see how you guys manage that in your different industries. Thank you.
That's a really good question. I think ultimately, if you're not sincere in the way you're marketing, the customer ultimately will feel it. And it's not a good long-term strategy. That being said, we have a department dedicated to CRO, which is conversion rate optimization online. And it is by doing things like that, like, okay, if we place this on the right versus the left, we're gonna get more clicks. So all of that is designed intelligently. But the way I look at it is just making it easier for the customer to check out, right? So it's there to improve the customer experience, but always with the customer in mind. So the goal is to have that be more seamless, that you don't have to look for your things. When you're in the cart, oh, okay, I know exactly where my flow is. I know where I'm at in my flow. So it's designed to really make the experience more flawless. So if you always put the customer, like I know I repeated the customer maybe a million times in this, my answer, but if you're putting the customer first, it'll show. But if you're being unauthentic about it, that will also be felt, and you'll lose those customers eventually.
Right. You may fool them once,
but not fool them twice.
Not fool them twice. Yeah, very good.
I also think it's perhaps one of the reasons why people are returning to in-store. I think Simon's is a great example of a department store that has stood the test of time, in part because they show value beyond price. They have access to washrooms in stores, access to hemming services in stores. They come around the counter and they hand you your bag, even if you're not buying a luxury good. And I think that that is a great example of knowing your customer, showing value beyond price in a truly authentic way that they've remained themselves, that they've grown with their customer.
Yeah. And I think Paula wants to add something.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I had a guest on my podcast. It's a bedding wear company, so they sell bed sheets and stuff. And one of the things that they do for their clients is they go to their home and make their bed. Bring everything, they make their bed, teach, because this is such a pain point that we never think about. Like, I can buy expensive sheets, but do I know how to make it look like a hotel? They go to your house and teach you how to do it. And of course, that brings upselling and etc., but it builds the relationship long term. And that's one example I wanted to share.
Right. So like marketers don't have to feel bad about trying to make the experience something that brings value to the customer, and it also helps their bottom line. It's not necessarily a one or the other. They could do both, right?
That's our job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it really is. That's what marketing is connecting with the customer and then be able to make their experience as enjoyable as possible to make a sale. Because whether we like it or not, like we're in retail and the ultimate goal is revenue. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be comfortable with that. But how do we make it real? How do we make it authentic? How do we make sure the right person's getting the right thing and the right product? That's up to us to kind of package it in the right way.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. How are we doing on time? Are we?
We are pretty close to time. Yes, we do have to we have to get set up for the second episode.
Super. So maybe I can segue it. So there's a second session that's going on now, which is a case study hosted by Michel Paulin, who's a professor in the marketing department, with two guests, Solène Thubert and Jules Trollet. And they are co-founders of a fashion startup based out of Montreal. Very exciting stuff, so please stick around, allow the team to set up. And guys, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, and Paula, thank you as well. When you get to town, please let me know. I would love to, grab a coffee.
I'll be there on Thursday. Yeah, let's do it.
Super.
Yeah, we're sad you weren't here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you to the audience.